the U.S. government, which have gotten us into this place. Almost every situation that, those people articulated as posing threats to the United States, the crises that are derived because of a cause-effect relationship that has the United States provoking and other nations reacting. So if we stopped provoking, the reactions wouldn't happen, and then we wouldn't find ourselves, where we are. We also, need to understand that our entire the basic premise of American existence today, in terms of sustaining its current geopolitical status and its economic status, is premised on continued conflict. We are not a nation that we're like sharks. The old theory that if a shark isn't swimming, if it stands still, it's going to die because it needs to have continuous motion to flow the water through its gills. I know people are going to say, Scott, that's not true. I'm just throwing that out as an analogy. The point is, the United States, we need to keep swimming through conflict. Our economy doesn't work as a peacetime economy. And look at the way we brag about providing aid to Ukraine. The number one selling point wasn't that we're doing the right thing and we're trying to help a democracy. That comes later. It's, the money's not actually going to Ukraine. It's going into America. Jobs. It's about jobs. It's about building weapons for jobs. If you think about that, that's sick. If the health of the American economy is premised on the need to build weapons so that we can feed conflicts abroad, there's a fundamental problem with the way America works. And there is a fundamental problem with the way America works. The rules-based international order that we seek to sustain, again, is premised on America imposing its will on the world economically, politically, and when that fails, as it often does, militarily. Constant conflict. We don't have, China's, signature, international relations, thing is not, some alliance with a group of nations. It's, not promoting conflict. It's the Belts and Roads Initiative. It's about going out there and, building global infrastructure. Yeah, to China's benefit, of course. China's not a philanthropy. It's not giving away its money, but it's helping. It's in a mutually beneficial relationship to invest in others, the development of other nations. America, NATO. There it is. NATO. That's what we are, baby. NATO. And it's not a defensive alliance. It's an offensive alliance. It's an alliance that is expanding its reach into the Pacific. And that's it. That's what defines America in terms of foreign policy nowadays. That and the G7, which is literally the economic extension of NATO. So if America would just stop behaving the way it does, we wouldn't be in this position. So what can we do? How do we get America to stop behaving the way it does? That's a tall order. Because as I said, the very survival of America as it currently exists requires this behavior to take place. So America would have to retool, reevaluate its position in the world, do a lot of inner searching that we don't seem to be too capable of doing. The only way we can get America to actually change in terms of this direction heading towards nuclear war is scare the hell out of the American people. And a lot of people have accused me, Scott, you're being irresponsible. You're promoting this, that, and the other thing. Hey, I'm sorry, guys. I don't really give a damn. Because, if I'm wrong, it's just wasted hot air. But if I'm right and I don't scare the people, then we don't change policy and we all die. And if you keep looking at the news, maybe you'll understand that we are all going to die. I mean, we do that eventually, but we'd like to leave a world for our children, to leave a world for their children, and so on and so on. That's sort of what, societies are about, sustainable societies. When I say die, I mean all die in a nuclear holocaust, which is going to happen very soon if we don't change the way we're doing. The Russians are, almost fatalistic. They said, okay, well, we got to change our nuclear posture, listen to what I'm saying, people, lower the threshold for the use of tactical nuclear weapons. Is that really the direction we want to be going, where Russia is lowering the threshold for the use of tactical nuclear weapons because they say we have done the same with our posture, and they're right. With everybody lowering the threshold while raising the tension, guess what's going to happen eventually? We're going to use nuclear weapons, and there's no such thing as a limited nuclear war. It's all over. We all die. You can play stupid computer games if you want that somehow postulate you survive. That's about as dumb as dirt. All right. I'm talking reality. I'm talking about the reality of nuclear conflict where everybody does die. There's a reason why we called the former nuclear posture of the United States mutually assured destruction. That's because people smarter than the average computer game player sat there and said, if we go to war, we all die. These are the people that planned nuclear war, who know nuclear weapons, understand it. They know what the consequences are. And that's the thing. So we've got to scare the American public into understanding that the current posture of the United States leads to their inevitable demise. And then the American public can begin demanding things of their politicians. You can be critical of the American system. I am. It's not perfect. It's not anywhere near perfect. But we do have the ability, come election day, to kick stupid people out and put hopefully smarter people in. And we have a big election coming up in November. Now, people say, Scott, there is no choice. Yeah, we got two people that want to be president. Maybe both of them will be on the ballot come November. Maybe none of them will be. Maybe only one will be. But the bottom line is they are reflective of a fundamentally divided nation, a nation that seems to be divided roughly in half. One of them wants to win. Imagine if I could scare the crap out of, 2 million Americans sprinkled around the states so that they controlled the outcome of the election. Because you take a look at states like Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, ultimately the Pennsylvania, the votes that swung it over tens of thousands of votes. And when you're talking about states of millions of people, that's not that much. So imagine if I could control, say, 50,000 votes in a state or more. What I mean by control of it, have these people commit that their vote doesn't go to a person or a party, but to a cause, the cause of stopping nuclear war. And they will vote for the person who best articulates a policy of how they're going to prevent nuclear war. Now, the Republicans and Democrats aren't stupid. They look at things, and you've seen it. Everybody's like, Scott's not going to work. Really? If you make an issue big enough, trust me, and the issue becomes one that will define an election, you'll see the party suddenly think that issue is very important. And if you can control the outcome of this election based upon controlling a block of voters who have made stopping nuclear war their cause, suddenly you start maybe seeing the Republicans and the Democrats talking about this responsibly. And so that's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm trying to achieve. I'm trying to scare the living hell out of the American people that they are all going to die because of the irresponsible policies of our government, and maybe get them to believe in the value and power of their vote, to make their vote stand for something, and then cast that vote accordingly come November. And maybe, just maybe, we'll be able to have people in the White House who say, I guess the American people aren't thrilled about nuclear Armageddon, so we're going to change the policy direction on. Scott, that's impossible, man. It's never happened. Ronald Wilson Reagan was the president of the United States. Communist hater, hated him, called Soviet Union evil empire, joked about firing missiles against Soviet Union. He's the guy that began, nuclear disarmament. The Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty, the treaty that I helped implement, was the first time that we got rid of an entire class of nuclear weapons. Now, that treaty no longer exists because Donald Trump pulled out of it. But if Donald Trump believes that the only way he's going to get elected is if he articulates sound policy about nuclear disarmament, who knows? Maybe we'll get that treaty back. Maybe we'll get something better back. We don't know unless we try.
Let's look at the elections coming up here in November. 2 choices on the ballot for the moment. Well, 3, of course, but let's just call it the main parties, Republicans and Democrats. What if it falls back into the hands here of Joe Biden for a second term? What are we going to deal with then?
Well, Joe Biden actually ran in 2020 on a platform that said that he wanted to change America's nuclear posture to, one that was solely based upon the notion of deterring nuclear strikes, called the sole purpose doctrine. The sole purpose of American nuclear weapons is to retaliate against nations who attack us with nuclear weapons. And we will retaliate so overwhelmingly that we'll wipe you off the face of the earth. Therefore, we have deterred you from using nuclear weapons. He said that's what he wants, as opposed to our current policy of nuclear preemption, basically any time we want to attack. He inherited a nuclear posture from Donald Trump, where you had Trump officials bragging at Arms Control Association gatherings that the goal of the Trump administration was to have the Russians and the Chinese wake up every morning not knowing if this was the day America was going to nuke them. I'm dead serious, man. Every morning they said, we want the Russian and Chinese not to know whether or not today is the day we're going to nuke them. That's insanity. But that was the Trump administration. Biden says that's insanity. I'm running on this posture. Now he came in and he didn't do anything. We had a reunion of intermediate nuclear forces inspectors and negotiators a couple years ago in Washington, D.C., and the Biden administration sent their senior arms control official to talk to us. Maybe that person wasn't old enough to understand who was in the room, because the guys that are in the room, guys and gals, are the best damn arms control people in the history of the universe. We're the ones who made arms control history. We're the ones who negotiated the first disarmament treaty and implemented it. So here we are, the brain trust of American disarmament, sitting there listening to this person blabber on about Biden. And one of our senior guys got up and asked the question, hey, Biden said he's running on that platform. A lot of us here thought that was a cool idea. And then he didn't do anything. Why not? He's commander in chief. The answer was because the interagency wasn't ready yet. And we all looked at each other, what the hell, the interagency? Did any of us vote for that? Nope. Interagency, you can call it anything you want. The establishment, the deep state, the blob. But the bottom line is there's this unelected power in America that can literally veto the decisions of the executive, the president. Maybe what Joe Biden could do is terminate the deep state if the American people empower him to do so. In America, politicians can literally get away with murder, literally, if it's done for the right reasons. I mean, hell, Obama murdered American citizens, sent drones out, murdered them in Yemen. It's against the law. Violation of due process, the whole thing. Got away with it because he said they were terrorists, they were this, they were there. Biden could literally fire a whole bunch of people if he wanted to, or whoever Biden is, who's controlling Biden, we don't know. But the bottom line is if a Biden administration comes into a second term and the American people empower him to the point where he only gets elected because of, again, the anti-nuclear war vote, maybe he'll do the right thing. There's no guarantee he will. There's no guaranteed outcomes here. But, the Biden administration is political like everything else, and they are beholden to constituencies. And if they have a constituency that got them into office and will hold them accountable for what they do, if they don't do it, maybe we'll see some progress. The same holds true with Donald Trump. As insane as the man is on certain policies, he has on occasion recognized that nuclear war can end the entire world, and maybe we shouldn't be pursuing policies that lead to that direction. I'd like to see him more strongly commit to that. I'd love nothing more than another debate between Biden and Trump where all they talked about was preventing nuclear war. It isn't going to happen, but we can pick on Biden all we want. We can pick on Trump all we want. There's so much ammunition out there to throw. I don't care. I don't care if one guy grabs some woman's what, and I don't care if the other guy's don't, his brain doesn't work. I don't really give a rat's ass anymore because that's the option we have. You and I can't change that. It is what it is. So we've been dealt a really crappy hand in a high stakes game of poker. Got to play the hand, man. And that's what I'm talking about. So I'm not going to waste any time talking about Biden being brain addled and Trump being corrupt. It is what it is. We're going to get one of the two. Or somebody from that political orientation. And we got to deal with that. You can't just sit there and be dismissive of somebody because you despise them. I despise both of them. But one of them is going to be commander in chief. And that person's going to have life and death decisions. And my job as an American citizen right now is to find a way to put pressure on these two individuals so they make the right decision when it comes to nuclear war.
Well, I appreciate, and the audience appreciates your commitment to do that, Scott, and thank you. I mean, you've made it loud and clear here. You've rang some serious alarm bells here, especially since you've been on our show, and people are listening up. It's each step of the way here, it just continually increases. Now, we have an economy that on the surface looks good in numbers if you look at it on the financial markets, but, I had a comment from a subscriber of mine that said the other day, if just one of these guys got up there and talked about how you could improve the average American's life, getting groceries that are affordable housing for people. They might sway that independent voter, that voter that is not sure which way to go. I mean, you're in America. Can you maybe, my audience is 21% American here, and the other, I guess, 79% is worldwide. What's the lay of the land there? How are things going over there?
I gave up trying to understand the American economy a long time ago, because things that you learn about in college, and you study basic economic principles. I mean, just the way I run my household, I receive a paycheck, and at the end of the month, hopefully I have some of that paycheck left. If I don't, I'm spending too much money. I need to bring it down. Or I borrow, but if I borrow, it's premised on my ability to pay back the loan and not go bankrupt in the process. The U.S. economy doesn't function that way. It's totally, it operates using completely different rules. It doesn't work for everybody. We know that. We have people, grocery bills are going up, but at the end of the day, I sit here, everybody goes, America's failing. Well, yeah, I understand that, except my house isn't collapsed. It's a pretty good house. I maintain it. How do I do that? Well, I earn money, and I pay my bills, and I do that. I come out on a highway that works. There's some potholes in it I don't like, but they fill them up on occasion. But I can get from point A to point B on a highway transport system that works well. In fact, works very well. I can get on trains that get from point A to B, not high speed. It's not sexy, but they get there, get the job done. We got trucks running around delivering goods. America works. America functions. The American economy is functioning. The things that we criticize America about are things on the periphery, but the fundamental health of America is rock solid. And that's the problem, because all of us are looking at things going, it doesn't make any sense. They keep talking about the housing bubble. It scares the hell out of me, because I'm a homeowner. I don't want the value of my house to plummet. That would be devastating. And so people are talking about the housing bubble. And I'm like, oh God, please don't burst. It hasn't burst yet. And the last time it burst, it recovered. I mean, I think the American economy operates on its own playbook. And that also means that we have to be a little bit more, I think, responsible in evaluating how the American economy functions globally. Because like me, there are a whole bunch of people around the world that aren't happy about America's economic policies, especially when it translates into sanctioning things. But, if sanctioning was so evil, and it is, I think it is, then why can't the world do anything about it? I mean, that's a fundamental question I have for the Chinese. If American sanctioning of China is so bad, so fundamentally bad, why can't China do anything about it? And I'm not challenging the Chinese. I think the answer is obvious, because there's not much you can do about it, because despite all the negative naysayers out there, the American economy is pretty damn strong. And we are very influential around the world today. And when we decide to flex our muscle, it hurts people. And China right now doesn't want to get hurt. I'm not saying China can't ride it out, but does China really need a trade war right now? No. Russia is surviving sanctions. Their economy is growing, but there's some people out there that say that the Russian economy isn't sustainable, because right now it's transitioned into a war economy where 30% of their GDP is based upon war spending, and someday the war will end, and are the basic fundamental aspects of the Russian economy in place. I believe the Russian leaders are aware of that and are trying to build things through bricks to do that. But again, the idea that the American economy is in collapse, the empire is crashing, and the world is rushing to replace it, I think it's a lot more complicated than that. And the reason why I'm bringing it up is that, it's not as easy to appease the American people, because our economy is so multifaceted out there. There's not something you can do that solves everybody's problems. And so politicians end up picking their fights to pick constituencies that come down to, remember what we were talking about controlling that vote, having that swing vote. Mm-hmm. So in an election year, suddenly if you're a Black American, you'll find that politicians remember you. Wait a minute, there's Black Americans out there, and they'll start doing things for there. If you're in a swing state and you're an auto worker, they've ignored auto workers for 3 years, but suddenly auto workers are the most important guys in the world. And they're going to just say a whole bunch of things up until November. And after November, Nothing will happen because they bought the vote, they got the vote, but America didn't collapse. You've been waiting for people have been waiting for America to collapse. They keep talking about the collapsing American. I see America withdrawing. I see us but we're in the Middle East. We're still there. Yeah, we left Niger, and everybody's like, "Oh, America's in retreat." I'm happy we left Niger. I agree with you, but we're going to build another base, maybe in Botswana. So we're not out of Africa. How many countries can build a base in Botswana? I just want to throw that out there right now. Around the world right now, name me how many countries that, on the spur of the moment, could fly out, invest hundreds of millions of dollars to project military power into Botswana. One. So, we can badmouth America all we want, and I'm right up there in the lead. I'm not happy with any of this, but we have to be realistic about America too. We're the strongest damn nation in the world today. There's nobody that can match us. As weak as we are, as much as we've forgotten the fundamentals, there's nobody that could match us for power projection and dominance of the global economy. Even China, as dominant as they are, understands that the combination of American diplomatic, military, and economic power is too much to take on at this point in time. Maybe down the road, but and the reason why I bring that up is because of this strength, this continued strength. Americans aren't panicking. Remember, I told you that the key to getting the Americans to do something is to scare the living crap out of them. Now, I see numbers. I'm not reading the messages too deep. Somebody threw up something about debt. Threw out a huge number. Scares the dog poop out of me, man. I look at that number and I'm scared, but I don't understand it, because if I had that kind of debt, it's the end of basically it's over. I can't get out of that debt. Can't. But somehow America has this debt and we just keep going. We keep going. And there's people out there that talk about how actually the debt makes us stronger. I don't understand that, but I take a look at what America's doing globally, and there it is. People talk about the collapsing dollar. Is it collapsing? I'm not seeing a collapsing dollar. I'm seeing a dollar being challenged and shrinking. But what's replacing it? The renminbi? Nope. The ruble? Nope. The rupee? Nope. They don't know how to replace it yet. That's the problem. Now, when they figure it out, how to replace the dollar, I think the dollar will be in a big problem. But right now, remember, the dollar is powerful because for decades, America has dominated the global economy and the world has become addicted to the dollar. Getting off heroin addiction isn't easy. It takes time, and it's a struggle. And getting the world off the addiction to the dollar isn't going to be easy. It's going to take time. And so people that are predicting the imminent collapse of the dollar and the imminent collapse of the American economy, don't hold your breath, man. It's shrinking, and I think eventually America will have to adapt to a changing reality. But I'll leave you with one last thought. Global hegemony is stronger than multipolarity right now. Multipolarity is the trend. It's heading in that direction. But BRICS can't stand on its own feet right now. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization doesn't have the ability to impact the world the way it could. Now they're heading in that direction. And I think eventually that's where we're going to be. But right now, today, as we speak, the global hegemony is America. And America still has a very dominant position in the world today. And it's a reality people are going to have to deal with, because you can't be dismissive of it. You can be angry with it. I'm furious about it. You can say you want it to change. I desperately want it to change. But you can't pretend that it's not there, and you can't diminish it, because the second you diminish it, again, if you don't define a problem accurately, you'll never come up with a solution to the problem, because the solution you say you've come up with isn't solving the problem because you haven't defined it properly. I think the world needs to be more clear-eyed about America, and about the role America plays and America's capabilities and things of that nature, because then we can come up with solutions to best deal with it.
These are all very good points, Scott. And I think something that I've missed in a lot of our live streams to tell the audience, and I'm not sure if you guys realize, I do live in Shawnee here. I was walking the streets here recently with Cyrus Jansen, another geopolitical analyst that's got a pretty big following here on YouTube as well. He lived in China 12 years. He's an American. And every person that we came up to here in China, when they asked where he was from, he said, United States of America. They're like, great. They would find always something to relate to Americans. They were very happy. And Cyrus outright said, hey, what do you think of America? And of hundreds, and I'm serious, of hundreds of people that he talked to, no one had one bad thing to say. And we, if we do watch the headlines, as Scott says, and you watch some of these talking heads on programs, you would think it's 1.5 billion people against America. That's not the case. They love NBA basketball. They love Major League Baseball. I mean, they love going to Starbucks in the morning here. They like a lot of things about America, and vice versa. I think that both of these nations, when they work together, this would be very powerful. I don't think you need a winner in this case. I think you need somebody that, yes, of course, says, wait a minute, you're getting bigger. We know you're getting bigger, and we're going to keep an eye on you. And the other one saying, well, our ambitions are to be someone like you. Now, I'm not saying culturally, but I'm saying that this is a nation here in China that has gone through, very dark times in the last, I would say 100 years. It's rising now, and it's learning, and it is taking a lot of things from America and improving what they can on their standpoint. I mean, if you looked at this economy 30 years ago, when cities like Shenzhen, which are 20 million now, that were fishing villages, you couldn't stand up and say, yes, China is a global superpower. Now, okay, 30 years later, they've made remarkable changes, but we have a long way to go. And that word developing, everyone kind of is wondering, how can you still say that China is developing? Just because it's got amazing infrastructure here, the people are still developing. I work with about 100 of them a day, and there are certain things that, we, as the West, can bring and help them move forward. And they are willing to collaborate with our nations. So I don't see China as this, the big bad threat. But yes, there are things that can, definitely trigger some issues. South China Sea, for example. Scott, your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, first of all, let's just talk about the premise that you've laid out here. Of course, the perfect world is where people can sit down and talk. Unfortunately, we live in a world where America operates on a zero-sum, game principle. So your victory is our loss. That's how we view the world. So anytime China has a victory, anytime China succeeds, instead of us saying, well, okay, good job, China, but we say, that's our loss. We lost on, because we believe that we have a inherent right to dominate the globe. So right off the bat, it makes, what China's doing in terms of succeeding. And China is succeeding. There's no doubt about that. It makes China's success appear to be an existential threat to the United States. China has a view of history and its role in the world that has led it to embrace what they call, it's gone through but I think right now the popular one is 9-dash line. So basically it's a delineation of what constitutes Chinese territorial waters. It's controversial because virtually no one else in the world agrees with it. In fact, China's taken the 9-dash line and how it applies to the South China Sea. Not China, but other nations took China to court to international mediation, and the international court found that China's claims had no basis in law. China doesn't care. China is saying, no, this is ours, and they've taken a very aggressive measures to make sure that it remains theirs. They've taken atolls and they've dredged up sand and they've created islands and they've fortified these islands, and so their presence is there permanently. They're not backing off. It is de facto China. Nothing happens in a vacuum. I think there's legitimate reason for many of these nations to oppose what China's doing in the South China Sea. The Philippines claims that it has rights over the South Thomas Shoal. They have an old ship parked there with some Marines on it that are protecting it. That's become the center of conflict. Vietnam has some issues. Malaysia has some issues. It's also the world, I think,